What we have is an 1848 Hunneman machine built for the Merrimack Manufacturing Company. It was a privately owned machine, hand tub. Basically, it was one of approximately 12 to 14 that were owned by the city of Lowell and private manufacturers in the 1840s and the 1850s. The machine is original all the way through. It has 6 and 15, 16-inch cylinders. It has murals on the side that were put on there as a representation of what would have been an original basis. The side panels along the ground level are gold-leafed, just as they looked in the 1888 picture that the Lowell Historical Society possesses. The machine was used in the general line of firefighting from 1848 till 1860, when it was put in storage when the first steamer came into Lowell and took over, the city department took over for the volunteers that were in the department prior to that. It stayed in storage till 1888, when it was taken out of storage for purposes of the Veterans Firemen's Pumping Competition, and it stayed competing and still competes in the New England States Veterans Firemen's League. It stayed in Lowell until about 1956, went to Wakefield, then Newburyport, and now belongs to the Granite Hand-tub Association in Newmarket. It's one of 15 hand tubs we possess.
Okay, and what is she doing? If we can just kind of walk around and you can point to different aspects on the machine. Why don't you take that camera off? Stop recording.
Pulled. A lot of the older trucks also had Haas bars. We have an 1857 Hunneman that has the original Haas pull bar. So it really depended on the number of people that were available to actually pump the machine. This was only pulled by the people in Lowell that worked at the Lowell Manufacturing Company and other citizen volunteers, so it never had a Haas pull bar. That's the original pull bar for the machine itself. The pipe that you see is a competition play pipe that we presently use for the New England States Veterans Firemen League for long distance. It has a pressure relief at the end, so we get longer distances, but it is an original play pipe from Hunneman and Company that came. It's not the one that came with this machine, but it's the one that came with another Hunneman machine, and it actually is stamped Hunneman, so it belongs to the same era as what you're seeing here. The way that the machine actually operated is these bars right here fold out toward the front and back of the machine, and then you end up getting men on the inside and outside of this set up straight bar, and by pumping up and down you move the piston in the cylinder, and that creates the water flow for fighting the fire. This machine could hold approximately, and still does hold approximately 45 to 50 men when you have a full set of brakes, approximately 25 to 30 on each front and back, and of course that's divided up into the inside and the outside. The rocking beam itself, which is this center beam in here, is original to the machine. It shows in the picture that the Lowell Historical Society has. The suction hoses, which are right below the murals, the original had 2. If you notice the front clamp area, there would be a second suction hose which all attached together, and down below in the mural area, the gold leaf mural area, you used to be able to take the suction hoses, hook it up to that, and run it as far as you wanted to a cistern, and that's how you draw the water. That's still how you draw the water into the machine, only we use a present-day suction hose that's adapted to the fittings that existed. Every fitting on every machine in every town came with there was no universal fittings like there are right now. The murals on both sides of the machine represent Lowell. However, when we acquired the machine in 1995, they were lost. So we really don't know what the manufacturing company had on them at the time. However, it was decorative, and this was, at the time in 1848, the most expensive machine that could be purchased from the Hunneman Company. And that's why it had the murals. That's why it had the gold leafing. That's how it had the bell and the decorations and the lanterns. The lanterns are unique to the hand tubs in that this is almost pre-whale oil type situation, in that it had candles in the area where it's stenciled Merrimack manufacturing. The bottom is spring-loaded, and as a result of that, when you put the candle in, as it burned, the springs would continue the candle going up and would also buffer as it was going down the rough roads of Lowell in that day. And that's why you see the springs between the lantern and the bell, because if those springs were not there, then of course the glass would break. The glass is all original bevel glass from 1848. In the middle of the machine, the mechanics, that copper dome that you see, it cannot be recreated today. Up till and including the early 1950s, there were people that still had the skills to hand form that into the pressure cylinder. But what that does is that contains air, and when you're pulling in the water by way of the cylinders, the air is compressed into the top of the dome. And what that does is every time you pump at the bottom of a stroke, naturally you stop. If that air in that dome was not there, the water would stop. But because the air is within the dome, it allows the water to continue coming out on a steady stream. There is one other tank toward the rear of the machine. The vacuum tank, which is this large tank to the rear of the dome, actually is another instrument that keeps air within it and creates a vacuum, so that when you're pumping, the water is coming out of the cistern in an even flow. Because if that wasn't there, every time you'd come to the bottom of the stroke, you'd stop pumping and the water would stop going in, and you'd have to start it up again on the other side. Well, that takes care of that. There were no real city departments or anything like that. So every company of volunteers or fire society had their own particular name. Like in Lowell, you had the Mazeppas, you had the Torrent, you had the Merrimack. This particular machine was named the Merrimack because it was purchased for fire protection of the Merrimack Manufacturing Company, one of the first Lowell mills. And so they purchased it, and it was privately owned by the Lowell Manufacturing Company. Number 4 only signified what the city of Lowell indicated as the company number. So it was Merrimack, but it was number 4 because the city assigned that as the 4th engine. Number 1, 2, and 3 belonged to other companies within the city, and number 4 just got assigned to this particular organization. People call them jumpers, people call them hose reels. Most people picture the hose reels as being something that's hand-pulled, and this one could be. However, if you notice, most of the hose reels you see have a very short distance from here to here. And that short distance is so that they can control the machine to lay the hose. This was completely full of hose when it went to a fire in the 1840s and 50s. And the reason you have such a distance is it has to follow behind the machine and was being hand-pulled. So this particular hose reel was built particularly for the Merrimack and particularly for Hunneman machines. And many of the Hunneman machines, if not most, have a little hook in the back. And even if the hose reel doesn't presently exist, it probably existed at the time it was purchased.